Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Daryl Kirstein. I'm the Director of Finance for Living Lord Lutheran Church. And what we have with us today is Stephen Phelps. Stephen is the Regional Gift Planner for the Lutheran Planned Giving Partnership of the Central States Senate and Arkansas, Oklahoma Synods. Stephen is a staff member of the ELCA Foundation and works to represent the foundation and its partner organizations. He's available to work with individuals, congregations, ELCA organizations to assist them with stewardship, endowments, and planned giving. Stephen brings over 30 years experience and has literally helped thousands of people on their planned giving needs. But before we get going, I would like everybody to, if you could mute down at the bottom of the screen in the GoToMeeting, you can mute your microphone so that there's no feedback or no interference with Stephen's presentation. And if we'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation, so if you could send the questions to me in the chat room, then I will go through the questions at the end of the presentation and have Stephen answer them for us. So again, thank you all for participating. And Stephen, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Daryl. Thank you, Lanny. It's a blessing to be here, and for those of you who are joining us and other ones that will come in, hopefully, I welcome you on the behalf of the ELCA Foundation and the Greater Church. As Daryl said, I do represent Central States and Arkansas, Oklahoma. I also provide some assistance in the New England Synod as well. So here we are in the midst of a pandemic, and everyone's wondering, what should I be doing? Does everything go on hold? Do I stop with my estate plans? Do I need to rush my estate plan? The answer is a little bit of both, but then that's kind of where we always are. And so today I want to talk a little bit about being bold and faithful and finding new ways to give. And in many ways, where's it at? Now it doesn't want to, oh, great. It was working with my, I wanted to move it forward. There we go. We'll just use the mouse. So what do we do? Do we give for tax breaks? And that's about current giving. Here in the United States, we are very fortunate to have this dovetail relationship between our taxing system and our charitable giving. And some things changed greatly in the end of 2017, 2018 with the new tax codes that were passed. And our deductions changed, our withholdings changed, our tax rates changed. And so it kind of made it a little bit more difficult to reach that limit of a married couple of $24,000 to hit that deduction. And so most of the time, I've found in my over 30 years of doing this that really tax breaks are not really the number one reason why people give. People give because they're asked and they believe in a mission. The tax break is just kind of gravy on top. So as we look at it, back in 2017 in December when they passed the new tax laws, as you can see on this screen, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, the reason I put it in there is because some things did change, as I mentioned. The standard deduction for couples went up to $24,000, and for a single person, it went to $12,000. State and local taxes were capped. So if you were in a high tax state like Connecticut or New York or California, that was an ouch. Here in Missouri, not so much, or in Kansas. Interest on primary and secondary residence has changed a little bit, $750,000. The child tax credit was raised, but it phases out at $400,000 and $200,000 for others. The big one was no personal exemptions. That was one, if you were itemizing or whatnot, a lot of that went away. So I'm not a tax advisor. So what I would advise, if you are planning on doing some current major giving, we all know that stock gifts are a great way to give because you avoid capital gain. I don't know if we're going to have so much capital gain this year. We may or not. Depends on where your stocks are lying and how the market responds to what's going on with COVID-19. It's been kind of a roller coaster ride. March was pretty rough. April was better. May's been kind of up and down. We're not going to get into the markets much, but it does impact how we give. So I want you to have that in the back of your mind as we go through this, because I'm going to be talking about a couple of scenarios where, understanding what's in the market, what asset classes you are using to make a gift or fund your estate is very important. So the rule, givers give. People give because they want to. People give because they believe in the mission. They believe in our congregation. They believe in our synod. They believe in what World Hunger is doing for the ELCA, the Red Cross, Save the Whales, your local humane society. Whatever it is that's important to us, we give because we're asked. We give because we believe in the mission. When do we give? Well, we give annual gifts. A lot of the times we write a check. Well, that's kind of changing. Most of the time, what we're doing at congregations, I think still, and I haven't really had a chance to talk with your financial advisor, Daryl, yet about what the major avenues are of giving at your congregation. But for the most part, people give on a weekly basis. They put in the collection plate. Well, these are challenging times. Many of us aren't meeting right now, or we're just starting to slowly open up. So many of us have not have a physical, church service since the beginning of March. And some congregations are hurting. It's really impacted their weekly take because people aren't there to put it in the collection plate. Now, a lot of that's shifted to online giving, which is amazing and wonderful. But, that's one of the reasons we give. We give annually. We give special gifts. In this instance here, we're looking at a photo from our recently finished and successfully completed campaign for the ELCA. And this was a malaria mission where we were helping fund malaria netting for children over in Africa. So we give for special reasons. And then finally, we give legacy gifts. These are for some emerging youth who were doing global mission a couple of years back, and your gifts to the church-wide support that. So we give legacy gifts. Well, the thing is, like, when do we give legacy gifts and how do we give? Well, a lot of folks have become more familiar with the DAF, which is a donor advised fund. A donor advised fund is where you set up an irrevocable gift within the foundation. If you were to use us, that minimum is $10,000. And then on an annual basis, you and your family, whomever you choose, gets to decide where your gifts go. We manage the fund for you. We send out the payments. We invest the fund for you. But the one thing about this is an irrevocable gift. So once you start the fund continues to grow. You can continue to add money to it. You can continue to receive tax deductions for it. And it continues to grow. A couple of things can happen with the DAF. It can go on in perpetuity, or a lot of the times what they'll do is they'll flip and turn into a memorial endowment. But once it flips and turns into a memorial endowment, you pretty much fix who you're going to give the annual distribution out to, versus when you keep it as a donor advised fund, you are actively involved and you can switch up the amounts and switch up how many times you give and who you give to on an annual basis, as long as they are 501c3 recognized charities. So, you can give to the ELCA disaster response, the Central State Synod, Lutheran Family and Children's Services here in St. Louis, or your own congregation out there in St. Charles. It doesn't matter. The possibilities are limitless as long as it's a 501c3. The qualified charitable distribution. This has been around for quite some time, but it was made permanent in 2015. And the qualified charitable distribution is where you can take up to $100,000 on annual or on annum out of your required minimum distribution out of a qualified plan. So it really needs to be an IRA, a 401k, a truly qualified plan. It can't be a 403b. You would have to convert it to a qualified plan. Then you could give out of it. You are limited to $100,000 on a year, or up to 60% of your adjusted gross income. You cannot touch the money, so you wouldn't take your distribution and then make the charitable gift. The charitable gift has to come directly from the holder of your IRA directly to the charity, meaning you can't touch the money, because then if you touch the money, it's going to be counted as income. By doing a qualified charitable distribution, you bypass income. It goes straight to the charity and it just gets deducted off of your AGI because it didn't count. You're not counting it as revenue. You're instead giving it away. Now, let's say your annual distribution is 100,000, required minimum distribution is 100,000. If you give away 50, then you're going to have to count and take 50 in that year as income, but the other 50 you gave away. So that's a really kind of simple way of looking at it. But especially if you're giving current gifts right now and you're having to take a required minimum distribution, you're 70 and a half. However, that did change here at the beginning of the year with the Secure Act. The Secure Act now allows you to put off taking your required minimum distribution to 72. However, you can go ahead and make a qualified charitable distribution at 70 and a half. However, you would have to stop distributions into your IRA, meaning you couldn't be adding money from your work or your employer couldn't be adding money to it. It would have to be sitting there just earning income in the market up and down. You could do it that way as long as you're not making contributions or your employee's not making contributions into your account. Or you could start doing the qualified charitable distribution at, if you decide to take it at 70 and a half, or if you wait to 72, you could start doing it then. Just one more slide on the how to use a QCT. Again, it has to come out of a qualified account and not touch the money, and then it can go either directly to do work, what God's mission is, or whatever charity you are interested in, as long as it's a 501c3, or you could do it and start up a memorial endowment. And then from that memorial endowment, as I said earlier, that memorial endowment's invested. It's a 25,000 minimum deposit. That memorial endowment would then start kicking out a 5% distribution on annum, and then you could then determine where you would set it's not like a DAF where you could change the recipient of the funds, charitable recipient of the funds every year. You would have to name a certain amount of charities. We allow, I believe, up to 10, and there is a 70-30 split. 70% must go to ELCA aligned entities or institutions. 30% could go to other 501c3 charities. So some benefits of a charitable gift annuity. This is another way of giving. As I mentioned, how do we give? A charitable gift annuity is a way to have tax savings, provide generosity and financial security to you or another individual, and provide you a fixed income based on CGA rates and does not change once issued. Like with a donor advised fund, a charitable gift annuity with the ELCA Foundation is an irrevocable gift. So once you give the income, it remains with the foundation until the death of the last of the annuitants. And we allow either a one life annuity or up to a 2-life annuity. And then at the end of that annuity of the last annuitants to live, its remainder is then given out to the charities you specify on the contract. And again, the 70-30 split applies. So how does a charitable gift annuity work? You use either cash or securities to make the contribution and open the contract. We then at the ELCA Foundation provide you with fixed lifetime payments, again for 1 or 2 life. And then the residuum is distributed to church and charities at the end of the contract of the last annuitant to live. Some examples of a $10,000 immediate CGA, meaning you would start taking the distribution payments on 5.4 immediately, versus over here on the right-hand side or left-hand side, depending on which side of the screen you're on, it's a flexible. A flexible gift annuity is where payments would start anywhere, future income for up to 10 years, you can delay it. Meaning you're going to allow that annuity to kind of grow. You're going to delay taking the payments. And as you see on the next slide, as you delay the start of those payments, that annuity rate goes up. Your tax-free portion of the payment goes up. Your ordinary income, of course, would rise because it is getting a larger payment. And the annuity that is paid to you goes up. Qualified retirement accounts. Again, this is another quick show of the qualified charitable distribution and how that works. Again, when you are taking that distribution, since you haven't paid tax on it, you will pay tax on it. If you do the qualified distribution, You bypass the tax because charities don't pay tax, and that lowers the tax that you take on because you're taking a less payment out of the distribution. In this slide, what we're showing is if someone was to get an inherited IRA, meaning your loved ones, your children, not your spouse, that would be a spousal IRA. That's a little bit different. But an inherited IRA is anybody other than your spouse. With the Secure Act, some things did change with IRAs, as I had mentioned earlier. One of the other changes that came along with the Secure Act is you used to be able to take an inherited IRA and kind of spread those payments out over time, the required minimum distribution. Now they've lowered that to a 10-year time frame. So once you inherit the IRA from a loved one, you as the inheritor only have 10 years to take that. So you got to draw it down within 10 years versus you used to have almost a lifetime before. And in this instance, you've got $1 million IRA, there's a lump sum, there's 10 years of taxes that are paid, the inheritance, and what goes on to your heirs. Here's the illustration of that 10-year distribution where you've got $1 million pre-tax inherited IRA. There's going to be spread out $90,000 a year. What's going to taxes? And then this is a part of their account. So it's a $2 million estate. They've got that $1 million IRA and then everything else over here. Well, all of this over here in Missouri, as long as it's under 21 million for a married couple or 10 million or so, 11 million for an individual, there's no tax. So it just goes straight on. Where the taxes are is right here in the IRA because you didn't pay tax on it, your heirs will. Now, one way to kind of get around this now is to set up a charitable remainder unit trust. Charitable remainder unit trust, the IRA would flow into that charitable remainder unit trust, and it would do distributions at about 5% over 20 years to the heirs. It's still taxable. That taxable rate will drop a little bit because you're going to spread it out over time. But what's great about this is that this remainder here from the IRA is actually being invested. It's earning income. So it is quite possible that the vast majority of that IRA would get to go eventually to the charities at the end of that 20 years. And within that 20 years, your heirs have inherited most of the IRA because it was invested. They still have to pay tax on it, but again, they're not having to take it in that 10-year time frame. They're taking it in the 20-year time frame, and that greatly reduces the amount of tax they pay on a yearly basis. It's still going to be paid over time, but you're spreading it out. And what's great about putting things into a unit trust, sometimes, especially if we have, younger children or younger adults, what are they going to do with a windfall like that? Are they going to be prepared to handle that? Number one, the taxes, but are they going to be prepared to spend it? Are they going to be prepared to save it? What are they going to do? Kind of putting it in a unit trust kind of adds a little bit of a break, if you will, to that being spent quickly. Instead, it is invested and it is turned out over that 20-year time period. So in St. Louis County, especially, let me get that all up there for you. Usually in a state that I run into, somewhere between 1 and 3 million. And this is just a simple illustration of how a 10% tithe would happen on an estate. And we're saying here that, I don't have all of when I work with an individual or work with a family, this demonstration here, this flow chart gets a lot more detailed because of all the different pots of money or silos of money, if you will. And the way that I do it normally is on the left-hand side of the screen is everything that goes to the family tax-free. On the right-hand side of the screen would be what's going to go to charity and what's going to be taxed. Most times not, it's the IRAs, of course, not a Roth because that's after tax, but a 401k, 403b, any type of qualified plan that's pre-tax, it's not been paid taxes on, and when you inherit it, you will pay tax. That's why I always suggest that we look at those pots of money, if you will, and determine how do we avoid the tax? How do we get what you want to go to your heirs in the best possible way, avoiding taxes and avoiding probate? and then getting what you want to charity in the most efficient and quickest way possible. So we're near the end of my presentation here. I would like to take a pause and say thank you for listening to my brief demonstration about how you can get involved in getting up your estate up to date, where you want it, and how you want it. A couple of things I didn't talk about, though, I just want to mention one more time, is if you don't have a will, you need one. Wills are easily gotten. There are lots of great estate attorneys out here in St. Louis County and St. Charles. They can get this done for you very quickly. Some people even do it online by themselves. There are a couple, freewill.com, a couple of other things that can be done as well. Remember, a will is your last testament. It's a statement. It's your narrative. It's what you want people to know because you've gone to your rest in God. And so it's you kind of talking from the grave, so to speak, and letting people know this is what I want done. But a will is not necessarily the best way to pass assets, both to your family or to charity, because of probate. By using beneficiary designation, by using trusts, by using payable upon death, transferable upon death, we can avoid probate. And everyone should take a time and a moment in these uncertain times right now, especially, to look at our life insurance, our bank accounts, our home, our 401ks, any type of financial instrument, and making sure that the beneficiary page or the beneficiary designation for that asset is completely filled out, both for the first beneficiary and contingent beneficiaries. Because the most known reason of why a contingency beneficiary is needed is due to motor vehicle accidents. A quick example of that is recently, back in 2018, I had knee replacement surgery, and my physician, Dr. Craig Abishan, was on a family vacation last year in July, and tragically, he and several members of his family were killed instantly in a motor vehicle accident in Colorado, out in the Grand Tetons rather. And it was a head-on collision. There were fatalities in both cars, and it's just an unbelievable reminder to me, because I'm thinking, oh, you're going to be the guy that's going to replace it again when I need a new one, and he's gone. And it was such a shock to his practice. It was such a shock to me as a patient. And but it made me think, this is the reason why we never know when. And it's so important to just take those few moments, or a day or a week, or however long it takes you to meet with your attorney, your financial planner, and me, to get it set up to make sure that it's what you want it to be and how you want it to go. Because we can always change it. That's the beauty of it. You can change your beneficiaries on your life insurance every day. I wouldn't suggest that, because your life insurance policyholder probably going to be really upset that you're online changing it every day. But you could do it. And that's what's great about technology and what we do right now. You can get online and change those things in a heartbeat. And so I'm going to take my pause here now and turn it over to Daryl.
Great, thank you, Stephen. That's very, very informational. I do have a couple questions that have come in. So, in the past, I've used appreciated stock to give to the church. Would it be better to use the qualified charitable distribution as opposed to gifting the appreciated shares?
It depends on your financial situation. So this is where your financial advisor is a great resource. What's going to benefit you better? Are you going to take a bigger hit on the capital gain? Or is your tax higher on the distribution? How much is your distribution? You don't have to take your distribution all at once, but it doesn't matter. You're still going to have to pay the tax. So if the distribution is 50,000, but you got a $60,000 capital gain that you can avoid by giving out the stock, you know, giving appreciated securities is still an amazing way to give a gift and avoid the capital gain. So again, I would highly advise you to meet with your financial advisor and pose that question to him or her.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question. So you mentioned the charitable remainder unit trust. Yeah, I've heard somebody mention a charitable remainder annuity trust.
Yes.
Is there, can you explain what the differences between those two really are?
Yeah, it's how it's invested and the payments over time. So what you're doing is, instead of the unit trust just paying straight out 5-year annuitizing it, and so with the annuity trust, we can do it for a lifetime. It will pay you an income for a lifetime versus the 20 years on a unit trust. We don't go any further than 20 years on a unit trust. Annuity trust can be for lifetime. So that's if, especially annuity trust, if you're going to fund it now, that's where we would go. We would go with a CRAT and annuitize your investment so that you get a lifetime payment. So it's going to pay you that same, whatever rate we devise when we set it up. It's going to pay you that same rate for life, just like the charitable gift annuity. But in the annuity trust, there's a little bit more latitude in putting things in, because once you do a charitable gift annuity, you cannot add to it.
Okay, thank you. And then one final one. You mentioned that it's best to maybe give distributions from tax deferred accounts, IRAs, 401ks to the church. So if I would have the church named as a beneficiary on a life insurance policy, that would maybe be better to switch it to my family and put the IRAs and 401ks to the church then.
That's correct. Life insurance, as long as it's not over the cap of the 21 million for a married couple, 10 or 11 if you're a single person, that's not going to, you're not going to pay tax on that. You will pay tax on the IRA. So if they inherit the IRA and you haven't paid tax on it, as long as it's not a Roth is after tax. So you can give a Roth without tax implication. 401k, 403b, qualified plans, those are going to require tax. Definitely. So we want to be sure that you're looking at that difference. So that's the whole purpose of that. Back it up here. When I do this, everything on the left-hand side is going to the family, and it's going to go tax-free. Everything on the right-hand side, that's where I would have the IRA, and it's going to show a tax. It's still going to the family, perhaps. Maybe it's 100,000 IRA and they want to give 500,000 to them. Well, that's going to show in a box. It's going to go to them inherited, but it's going to have a tax box in the middle, because you're going to have to pay tax first, then you get it. Or you're going to pay tax over time, depending upon how many years you spread it out. And again, now with the Secure Act, you've got 10 years, unless you put it inside a testamentary. Then you've got some extra time, up to 20.
Okay, thank you. So that's all the questions that I have. I would
Wow.
open it up to our viewers to see if anybody has a question they would care to ask Stephen over the audio. So if you have a question, please unmute your microphone and ask Stephen.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, you guys are just quiet. I love it. As Pastor Lanny said, and as Daryl said, I'm available to meet with you one-on-one if you have specific questions. I know that some people will be watching this on tape. That kind of scares me, but at the same time, now I'm out there in the internet land, officially on tape, so that kind of frightens me. But at the same time, it's good if it gets people to think about their estate and gets people to think about, oh, I really need to finish that will, or I need to look at my Boeing stock or whatever it is, and I really want to give it as a gift. Is now the time to do it? We're happy to help field those questions along with your financial planner, along with your attorney, and anyone else that advises you on your financial matters. We want to be sure that your estate plan is in place, says what you want it to say, and does what you want it to do. And it's simple. It doesn't take long. Sitting with me, we do it virtually now. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll be able to get back out and travel and meet with folk one-on-one if they're comfortable in doing that. Socially distance, of course. We can sit down and make a plan, and we can do it all online too. I mean, I can have my screen up, you can show me your documents, I can make up the documents for you. We have secure servers, we can send it by secure email, or we can do it by post or by FedEx. It can happen, next day delivery. So everything's on the table. So you don't have to fear like, oh, I've got to wait till this is over. Don't wait. You just never know when the Lord's going to call us home. And we want to be sure our plans say what we want them to say. Any other
Okay.
questions?
Anybody else? Okay.
That's a
Stephen,
wrap.
thank you very much for your time. Thank you all for joining us. I hope everybody has a great day. And again, please feel free to reach out to Stephen if you have any questions or would like to discuss matters confidentially. Thank you all.
Yep. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. God bless. Take
Bye-bye.
care. And if you need anything else, guys, just give me a call. I'm happy to follow up. And I love feedback. So please let me know if this was what you thought it was, if this was good for you, if it wasn't, places I can improve. We're always looking for that. Send me a message or give me a call.
Good. Thank you, y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.